Taking risks in the latter stages of the World Cup is not a common thing. Conceding a goal may cost too much when so much is at stake. Should you let your opponent score, you'll surely have a hard time breaking their defense. As a result, 3 out of 4 last World Cup finals went into overtime. And sometimes, as you might expect, the only option is a penalty shootout. So this video by Goal24 is about 10 most memorable penalty shootouts in the World Cup history. Before we start, we would like you to answer our question. Which one of these teams won the biggest number of penalty shootouts in the World Cup? Argentina, Brazil, Germany, France? Feel free to answer in the comments. And now, let's go! Brazil-Chile, the 2014 World Cup. Pentacampeones ended up in a group with Cameroon, Mexico and Croatia in their home World Cup in 2014. They managed to advance and faced Chile in the round of 16, the very team that didn't let the reigning champions through, and Spain got relegated as early as in the group stage. The game started well for Brazil as David Luiz found the opener 18 minutes in. However, their celebrations were not meant to last long. In the middle of the first half, Alexis Sanchez got the ball in the box and made it 1-0. It was a very close game from that moment, and both teams had their chances. But in the end, it went into overtime. Chile did look the better team throughout the overtime and could have won it late in the game, but Mauricio Pinilla's shot hit the bar. Penalties were to decide who was going through. The one to take the first shot for Brazil was David Luiz, who kept his composure and scored. Mauricio Pinilla, in his turn, got outplayed by the Brazil keeper Julio Cesar. A few moments later, Willian took a shot, but missed, and after that, surprisingly, Chile failed to score again. A shot by Alexis Sanchez was saved by Cesar. The next two to take a shot were Marcelo for Brazil and Charles Aranquiz for Chile. Both scored. Brazil looked in control and the penalty shootout was almost in the bag. But Claudio Bravo, the Chilean keeper, brought back hope to his side as he parried Hulk's shot. La Roja managed to level the score, but not for long. Neymar's shot was precise, while Gonzalo Jara hit the post. And that's how it all ended. Brazil went through into the quarterfinal, though beating Chile wasn't easy, that's for sure. Ukraine-Switzerland, the 2006 World Cup. The 2006 World Cup in Germany was a very special one for Oleg Blokhin's side, as it was the first ever World Cup for Ukraine. It started with a defeat against Spain. 4-0 was the score, as Ukraine had a man down since the 47th minute. However, Ukraine still managed to go through as they won against Saudi Arabia and Tunisia. Their rivals in the round of 16 were Switzerland, who finished first in the group 2 points ahead of France. No goals were scored during the 90 minutes, no goals were scored in the overtime either, so the winner was to be decided by penalties. The way it started for Ukraine was nothing less than a disaster. Andriy Shevchenko, the captain, lost his duel with Pascal Zubabula. But a moment later, it was Alexander Shovkovsky's time to shine as Marco Stella's shot got caught by the Ukrainian keeper. The next shot was taken by the young Artyom Milevsky, who remained calm and collected and left the keeper no chance with a Panenka shot. Tranquillo Barnetta was the one to take a shot for Switzerland after that. His shot hit the bar. Serhiy Rebrov, in his turn, was precise, and Ukraine were ahead 2-0. Barnetta's miss wasn't the last for Switzerland though. Shovkovsky saved Ricardo Cabana's shot as well, this entering the Guinness Book of Records as the first ever keeper who didn't concede a single goal in a World Cup penalty shootout. Oleg Gusev was the 4th penalty taker for Ukraine, and his shot went into one corner, while the keeper went for another one. Ukraine went through and became the first team from the former USSR to reach a World Cup quarterfinal. That record remained unbroken for as long as 12 years, until this game took place. Russia-Spain, the 2018 World Cup. Russia, with Stanislav Cherchesov in charge, successfully qualified for the knockout stage as they finished second in a group with Uruguay, Saudi Arabia and Egypt. Despite all the criticism the team had to face before the tournament even started, the minimum goal was fulfilled, and their rivals in the round of 16 were to be Spain. And despite all the problems La Roja had to deal with, such as the scandalous story with Julen Lopetegui getting sacked days before World Cup, it was still a top side packed with elite players, and no wonder Fernando Hierro's side were considered strong favorites. And the way the game started was one to be expected. A known goal by the Russian centre-back Sergei Ignashevich, 1-0 for Spain. At that moment, it looked like an easy game for Spain, but the penalty awarded to Russia shortly before the halftime break and scored by Artyom Dzyuba showed that it was far from over. In the second half, Russia succeeded in forming an impenetrable defense, so it went into overtime and half an hour later into a penalty shootout. The first two shots for both Russia and Spain went in. Koke was to take the third penalty for La Roja, but his shot was saved by Igor Akinfeev. Fyodor Smolov, Sergio Ramos and Denis Cheryshev, who took the next three shots, were all precise, and Iago Aspas, who was to shoot next, had no other option but to score. He went for the center, and Akinfeev managed to save it with his leg, though he had already made a jump. Russia were through into the quarterfinal, which was the best ever result for the team and a magnificent achievement. They had to take part in one more penalty shootout though, but that time the hosts found no luck against Croatia. South Korea-Spain, the 2002 World Cup. That Russia defeat wasn't the only time La Roja lost to the World Cup hosts. In 2002, they faced South Korea in the quarterfinal, after the Koreans finished first in the group with Portugal, the USA and Poland, and got Italy relegated in the round of 16, though with the help of some biased refereeing. Against Spain, there was the same game plan, defense, and once again it was well executed, as Goose hitting side managed to keep yet another clean sheet and hold on until penalties. It was going to be yet another shootout for Spain, as they had already won one against Ireland and expected more of the same. Young Iker Casillas almost saved the first shot taken by Hwang Soon-hong, but it still went in off the keeper's hands. A few moments later, Fernando Hierro made it 1-1 with his powerful shot into the left corner. But the Korean and Spanish takers scored from their next two attempts. It was 3-3, and the one to take the fourth shot for Spain was Joaquin Sanchez. And unfortunately for Spain, he lost his duel with Lee Woon-jae, the keeper, and Hong Myung-bo made no mistake. His shot went in, thus sending South Korea into the semis, where their luck finally ran out. They lost to Germany and then to Turkey, so in the end such an impressive run didn't even bring bronze to Goose hitting side. The Netherlands-Argentina, the 2014 World Cup. There was more than one penalty shootout for the Oranje throughout the 2014 World Cup. The first one was against Costa Rica in the quarterfinal. The one to make a difference was Team Krul, who came in as a sub instead of Jesper Silasen with one and only purpose, which was penalties. Van Gaal's gambling paid off. Krul made two saves, and the Netherlands were through into the semi-final, where they faced Argentina. The game ended 0-0, and so did the overtime. But that time Van Gaal decided not to sub in Krul and give a chance to Silasen instead. Unfortunately for the Oranje, it was then when their luck left them. Ron Vlaar took the first shot, which was saved by Sergio Romero. Messi in his turn scored, and Argentina were ahead. Arjen Robben's shot was precise, but so was Ezequiel Garay's powerful shot. Wesley Sneijder's shot didn't go in, and that was when it went from bad to worse for the Netherlands. Aguero scored and made it 3-1 in favor of Argentina. Dirk Kuyt's penalty left a glimmer of hope for the Dutch, but Maxi Rodriguez, whose nerves made him go for power, hit it right in the middle. Silasen was very close to saving it, but the ball went in off his hands and off the bar. Argentina were through and reached the World Cup final for the first time since 1990, while the Netherlands were out and could only compete for bronze from that moment. England-Colombia, the 2018 World Cup. Gareth Southgate's side were considered favorites in the round of 16 game against Colombia. It wasn't the easiest of games for England until they were given a penalty 57 minutes in after a Colombian player gave away a foul while defending a corner. Harry Kane, the best goalscorer of that World Cup, made no mistake, and the Three Lions were ahead. 93 minutes in, moments before the final whistle, they were about to secure the win and go through into the quarterfinal, but Yerry Mina's late goal forced the overtime. No goals were scored after that, though, so in the end it all went down to penalties. And you can imagine the English fans' worries. The Three Lions had lost 3 out of 3 shootouts before, while South American teams did thrive under such pressure. Both the strikers, Radamel Falcao and Harry Kane, were clinical from the spot. After that, Juan Cuadrado and Marcus Rashford made no mistake either. And then Luis Muriel scored for Colombia, while Jordan Henderson's shot was saved by David Ospina. Colombia could have built on their advantage, but Mateus Uribe's shot hit the bar, while Kieran Trippier scored and made it all square. But the one to save the day for England was Jordan Pickford. He made a miraculous save against Carlos Bacca. England needed one more precise shot to get into the quarterfinal, and Eric Dyer from Tottenham sent the ball right into the corner, thus making Colombia face relegation and winning a penalty shootout for England for the first time in the World Cup history. Argentina-Germany, the 2006 World Cup. Argentina, with José Pekerman in charge, were incredibly close to beating Germany, the hosts and favorites. They were ahead from the early second half when the captain, Roberto Ayala, scored for Argentina. Their defense looked really solid and did make the German fans fear the relegation. However, the Bundesteam did find a late equalizer. Miroslav Klose's goal forced the overtime. No goals were scored in the following 30 minutes, so the only way a winner could be determined was a penalty shootout. Oliver Neuville was the first one to shoot and the first one to score for Germany. Julio Cruz made no mistake either, but after Michael Ballack scored from the spot, Ayala, the scorer for Argentina, gave it away to Jens Lehmann. Lucas Podolski and Maxi Rodriguez both scored their penalties, and so did Tim Borowski, so Esteban Cambiaso had no right to miss. And unfortunately for Argentina, the former Real Madrid player's nerves got the better of him. His shot was saved by Lehmann, and Germany were through into the semi-final, while Argentina were relegated despite the eye-catching football they showed. Italy-Brazil, the 1994 World Cup. The final game of the 1994 World Cup in the United States ended 0-0 as both teams were too afraid to concede a goal. They stuck to their careful approach even in the overtime, so a penalty shootout was meant to decide the winner. Franco Baresi took the first shot for Italy and led his team down as it went way over the bar. Marcio Santos, the Brazilian, found no luck either. After that, however, the 4 next shots went in. Romario, Albertini, Branco and Evani were all clinical. Unfortunately for Italy, Daniele Massaro was the one to end the streak. Claudio Taffarel saved his shot, and that was the last mistake Italy could afford to make. It was 2-2, and Dunga, the future manager, scored for Brazil, so the South American side were ahead. And Roberto Baggio, the Ballon d'Or winner, had no other option but to score. But in the end, his shot went miles over the bar, just like Baresi's. The World Cup 1994 went to Brazil, while Italy had to wait for another 12 years to reach the World Cup final again. France-Italy, the 2006 World Cup. A most dramatic final didn't start well for Squadra Azzurra, as the French side earned and successfully converted an early penalty. Zinedine Zidane's Panenka went in off the bar. Italy still managed to find a quick equalizer thanks to Marco Materazzi and his header. But that was the last goal to be scored that evening. The game went into overtime, where no team managed to find the net, but it was something to remember nevertheless. The most significant of stories happened between Zidane and Materazzi. The Italian insulted the Frenchman's sister, which was the final straw for Zizou. he headbutted Materazzi, and while the Italian was lying on the pitch and screaming in pain, Zidane got a straight red in his last ever game. Zidane walked away from the pitch to watch the penalties from the dressing room, as he was always ready to get back there and lift the trophy. The two first shots were scored by Andrea Pirlo and Sylvain Wiltord. The next one to take a shot was Materazzi. Booed by the French fans, he made no mistake from the spot, so Fabien Barthez, who guessed the direction right, didn't manage to save it. David Trezeguet took a long run up, but hit the bar. The following 4 shots went in, 2 for Italy and 2 for France, so Fabio Grosso's shot was to decide everything. And Fabio made it count and won the 4th World Cup title for Squadra Azzurra, while Zidane had to watch his team lose his last ever final. Uruguay-Ghana, the 2010 World Cup. The quarter-final game between Uruguay and Ghana in the 2010 World Cup in South Africa was one of the most dramatic and memorable things the tournament ever had to offer. Saleh Muntari's long shot went in shortly before the halftime whistle. However, Diego Forlan made it all square with a stunning free kick early in the second half. No goals were to be scored afterwards, so the game went into overtime. It was about to end, and the teams were getting ready for penalties when an opportunity emerged for Ghana. Luis Suarez saved his net with his hand, and a penalty was awarded to Ghana. As for Suarez, his desperate fall got him sent off. Asamoah Gyan could have become the hero for Ghana, the one to send an African side into the World Cup semi-finals for the first time ever, but his shot hit the bar. And you can imagine how gutted the Black Stars were to waste such an opportunity and take part in a penalty shootout. Diego Forlan, the Uruguay captain, was the one to take the first shot. It went in. Asamoah Gyan still had the courage to make one more shot from the spot, and that time he did score. Mauricio Victorino and Steven Appiah, the next 2 takers, both scored, and then, after Andreas Scotti's shot went in, John Mensah's shot got saved by Fernando Muslera. Maxi Pereira had a chance to increase Uruguay's advantage, but sent the ball over the bar instead. That didn't affect Muslera's confidence though, as he saved the next shot by Dominic Adili, and Sebastian Abreu was to decide everything for Uruguay. He kept his head cool, and his shot sent Uruguay straight into the World Cup semi-final, leaving Ghana heartbroken. These 2 teams, we must admit, met once again in Qatar, and once again the African side got awarded a penalty, and once again didn't score. Andre Ayew from Marseille was the unlucky one this time. Just like 12 years ago, Uruguay won, but that wasn't enough for Luis Suarez and his team to advance into the knockout stage, as meanwhile South Korea made a comeback against Portugal, which allowed the Asian side to finish second. A penalty shootout is always a test of both skill and nerves, and yet even the best have to suffer defeat at times, as above everything else, penalties are a lottery, where too much is to be decided by pure luck. Dear friends, which one of these penalty shootouts is your favorite? Let us know please, we'd like to hear from you. Thanks for watching and see you soon.